Good evening, people. 33 years in 31 days, day 7, looking at 1996. Welcome along. Thank you for dropping in. Good to have you. I'm not quite sure who's in the room tonight. There's no comments, but you're all very welcome. So, day 7, 1996. Only 3 topics for you tonight. If I get my hand actually in the camera there. 3 topics: Trevor's dog, a new piece of kit, and telling lies. Me telling lies to the public. A sorry, sad point in my career. Maybe. So we'll make a start. Somebody asked me on Twitter today, said, "Who's Trevor?" I said, well, you'll have to drop in and come and have a look. But we're going to talk about Trevor's dog. And Trevor was one of our dog handlers. At the time, in Greater Manchester at that point, we had a dog attached to our block, and he covered the whole division. So we were one subdivision of 4, and the 4 subdivisions made up the division: the Charlie 1, 2, 3, and 4. Charlie 1, Charlie 2, Charlie 3, Charlie 4. Trevor covered the lot, but he was attached to our block. He was our dog man on our block, and every block had a dog man or a dog woman. But every block had a dog handler. And now there are occasions when I've been working and we've got one dog in Cheshire covering the county, and the other one is in North Wales somewhere. Things have changed. An incredibly valuable and incredibly important asset to policing. But the story with Trevor's dog was that Trevor's dog was very noisy. Trevor was a federation representative, and actually in a few years after this represented me over something and just came with me. Smashing bloke, really nice guy. Worked alongside us for many years, but his dog was very, very noisy. So whenever Trevor was on the radio, all you could hear was this huge barking from the dog all the time. But it was really, really rare that Trevor actually got the dog out of the van. It was very rare that the dog was deployed. And so one of the things that we used to always joke about was the fact that Trevor didn't have a dog at all. Trevor had a tape recorder with a dog barking on it that he used to play every time he transmitted on the radio. But suffice to say, Trevor did have a dog. Now, I've not got any sort of real images to show you tonight, but I have taken some Google Earth screenshots just to sort of give you an idea of what was happening. But there was a situation one night. It must have been sort of 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Deathly quiet, really, really quiet. We'd had a report of a possible thieves on at an address that sort of backed onto more or less a disused railway line that was very overgrown. But these disused railway lines, and you'll see from the Google image, is now the Metrolink line. That they actually reinstated it and put the Metrolink tram lines down there. But they used to be used as a bit of an escape route for burglars and criminals and ne'er-do-wells that would just sort of get out of the way and get on these disused lines and scramble through the undergrowth. And at this particular spot, it was really quite thick, the undergrowth. So as we realise where this job is likely to be, the dog handler and Trevor and the dog go straight to the scene, as do a couple of other patrols. And then the rest of us start to sort of plot off around in case this burglar, sus person, breaks cover and makes a bid to get away. So I'll put the screen up and you can have a look at that. Now, this is an area of Withington in Manchester, and Cavendish Road Park here is on Cavendish Road Park is in the centre there, and then Cavendish Road is just in the bottom left-hand corner. And if you look at the directly opposite side of Cavendish Road, you can just about make out the railway lines that are now the Metrolink running sort of top left-hand corner down to bottom right-hand corner. But that was disused and overgrown. And the house that was suspected of being broken into was on Meltham Avenue, which you can just see Meltham towards the top of the image. And it was one of the ones very, very close to the disused railway line. So Trevor and the dog had gone straight to the scene. I'm in this park, Cavendish Park. I've come down Cavendish Road, pulled up and walked into the park in the dark. And I'm stood in the middle of the park thinking, if he comes across the railway line and starts coming towards me, I've got a good chance of getting a chase and getting hold of him. So that's where we're up to. I'm stood in the park, in the dark, and we're waiting to find out what happens. So it's deathly silent, really, really quiet. No noise. You can hear the patrols arriving on Meltham Avenue. And then suddenly you hear, and Trevor's on the radio saying, dog's out, I've got the dog out, blah, 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 no rest of it. And then he says, right, everybody be mindful, as we said the other day, be mindful, the dog's now off the lead, which pretty much means cops just stand statue-like still and don't move, because then the dog will just leave you alone. So dog's off the lead. So you can hear a bit of thrashing around in the undergrowth and hear a few things. And it's still very, very quiet, though, just crashing of bushes and leaves. And Trevor talking to the dog, saying, come on, find it, where is he, and all this of it. And then suddenly it goes really quiet and you hear this, oh! And this wail, followed by this sort of gnawing, growling dog. You can hear the dog growling and continually moaning and groaning. The dog has got a grip of this person and it hurts. So you can imagine the noise that's coming from. Trevor gets up to the dog, starts shouting at the dog to release. The dog won't let go. So across in the park, in the dark, with no visual of anything going on, all I can hear is Trevor going, release, 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 and the dog going, arr, 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 and this suspect going, arr, and he was going, get your dog off, mister, get your dog off, mister. He's like, release, arr, and it goes on and on and on for what seems like ages. And then this lad is still whining about telling Trevor to get the dog off and making a big fuss about it in a really sort of pathetic, probably hurt, but in a really pathetic voice. And then suddenly everything stops. He stops whining, the dog stops growling, Trevor stops shouting at the dog, and for what seemed like an eternity, there was nothing. It was only a couple of seconds. At which point you can hear Trevor, and he says, will you shut the up? At which point the dog resumes growling, Trevor resumes shouting at the dog, and the prisoner is still going, ah! It was just in the park listening to it at that time was quite amusing. But that was Trevor's dog. From that point, we move on to a new piece of kit. Now, if you were watching yesterday, you saw that I shared a picture of the two truncheons that I have. The original one from when I was a special, then the new one I got when I became full-time, and how they sort of, one became a sort of tool for breaking into cars. And we had those for years. We had a little side pocket down the back of your trousers, the leather strap you would loop up and just tuck under your belt and over the top so you could get your hand in the strap very quickly and get to your truncheon if you needed to. And that was it. But around about this time, 1996, around about this time, might have been before, might have been a little after, but roughly this period, everything changed because we were issued with the Monadnock PR24 extendable batons in Greater Manchester. So we trained up and we're given these side-handled batons. And it was not the full piece. the PR24, which I think was what they were called, was the side handle batten, and then the length of it was closed in on itself, and you swung it, and as you swung it, that extending piece came out and locked into place, and then you had the full thing. So you'd sort of pull it off your belt, spin it round, and it would go click, and they used to call rack your batten, because you used to rack your batten out, and then you're ready to use it. And this was a new piece of kit. So we're all trained up on it, told marvelous things about what this batten is going to do. There's lots of stuff in the media and the news at the time about the police being issued with battens, and it was all Americanizing the police and da-di-da-di-da. But having trained with them and using them, you think, blimey, this is a really useful piece of kit. This has got lots of options to use. So we all get issued with these battens and we all get sorted out. And then I always remember this job because it was the first time that I can remember where we all got to a public order sort of type situation and the battens were out. And it's interesting because in those circumstances, we would never have got the truncheons out. It wouldn't have been a case of, right, we're all at the job and we've got our truncheons out. It just wouldn't have happened. The truncheons weren't seen as a piece of kit like that. They were for that, but they were never really widely used for that. But we got the side-handled battens, and we get called to a disturbance. And we get called to a disturbance here. And this looks like a very fancy house, and I'm sure at one time it probably was a very fancy house. But what this is a pub, and it's called The Sun in September, and it's in Burnage in Manchester. And I actually went drinking there quite a few times with friends. It wasn't a bad pub at all, and very pleasant. But on this occasion, it had been kicking off. And it's kicking off, and we get a call. So I'm just going to slide the next image up while that's live. That should change, hopefully. Yeah, okay. So that's the overview of the pub. So you come into the car park, bottom right, and the door is on that first lower corner of the building there. So we all pull into the car park, quite a lot of us, and there's this public order situation going on. There's a fight being inside the pub. It's all spilled out onto the car park, and we're all there trying to get things ready. But the minute that we get out of the cars, we all get out and just go rack, and battens behind our backs. And it was astonishing how many people suddenly went, whoa, it's all right, there's no need for that, we're going. And attitudes changed and people became more used to them, and then they were just accepted as being part of the police officer's kit, and people were less concerned about them. But right at that point, people were clearly very worried about this piece of kit. And the minute that we all racked out the battens and stood there with them, the whole thing just dissipated completely. And as relatively young in service at the time, but feet under the table and quite comfortable in my role, but you look and you think, did that just happen? Amazing, absolutely amazing. But that was a new piece of kit, the side handle battens that we got issued. And I still think to this day, we changed to like a hasp, that they call them, an extending batten without the handle. I don't like those. I've never been very comfortable with them. The side handle batten had a nice feel to them, the usability. I've never been that keen on the ones that we have now. But there we go. That's what we had, and it was an amazing piece of kit. And as I said yesterday, I never used my truncheon in anger. I never used it to hit anybody. And I was fortunate never to really have to hit anybody with the batten. But the one occasion where I did use it, there was a public order situation during Eid in Russia, and we were policing Eid. And there were about 6 lads all on a petrol station forecourt and round a car wash, causing all sorts of mayhem. And one of them was having a real go at me. And I just used the tactic that they have where you've got hold of the handle and you've got your other hand against the extended piece and you just push away. One of the tactics just to sort of push someone away. Blimey, did it work? took me by surprise it worked so well. The lad nearly went flying, but it resolved his immediate issues, and then more backup came and we got the job sorted. But great piece of kit. Finally, on this one, it's a short one today, really. But this one, telling lies. Me telling lies. And interestingly, this comes back to a dog, because I was in the Lady Barn area of Manchester, still my beat and patrol area, but I was in Lady Barn, and I got involved in a very short pursuit with an old banger, basically. Big thing at the time, nicking cars, black capping cars, where they used to pull the black cap, rip all the cowling off the ignition, pull the black cap off the back of the ignition, and then you could just put a screwdriver in it and start the car. They were doing it all the time, nicking cars left, right, and centre. So many times you go to a job to speak to somebody because their car was sat on bricks because somebody jacked it up and nicked all the wheels. Those are big things. Car stereo thefts, wheel thefts, and nicking cars were a huge thing at the time. We got behind this old banger, chased it for a very short distance, and he abandoned it. I think it's called Kingswood Park. But he abandoned it on the road and legged it into the park. So I dumped my car and I go running after this figure into the dark of the park. And I can hear him running and just sort of following my senses as I follow him across the park, trying to keep up with him. Haven't really got sight of him, but I've got a torch in my hand and I'm trying to illuminate him and all the rest of it. And I get right across the other side of the park. We've run sort of 200 or 300 meters, right across the other side of the park. And there's a fence and then an area that's got grass that's really high, and then the houses beyond. I think this area, I looked at Google Earth today, and I think that area is now more park, and it's got a play area on it. But it was just unused land at that time with long grass. And I could hear him going through the long grass. And then it stopped. Silence. I thought, crikey. He's either out the other side and through the garden and gone, in which case my backup's still not there. I've lost him, or he's gone to ground in the grass and thinks he might just get away with it. So I chanced my arm and told a lie. So I stood at the edge of the fence and I said, "You either come out now, or the dog's coming in." Suddenly this figure pops up out of the long grass, hands in the air. I'm coming. Frightened to death of the dog. He walks through the long grass, gets to the fence, I cuff him, he climbs over the fence, I cuff him on the other side, he looks at me and says, "Where's your dog?" "I haven't got one." He says, "You boss, you tricked me." I said, "Yeah, well, you fell for it, didn't you, mate?" He got locked up for theft of motor vehicle, TWOC, got charged with TWOC. Yeah, told a lie and it worked. Told him I'd got a dog and he came out and I didn't have a dog in the slightest. So could have been Trevor, couldn't I? No dog. Perfect. But there we go. That's all for today. Not a great deal to tell you for 1996. But next year, 1997, day 8 for 33 years in 31 days is an interesting year because it's the year that I start moving towards traffic and roads policing. So there's a lot went on that year. So looking forward to going through that one with you tomorrow. Until then, have a safe evening. Take care. Thank you for dropping in. Hope to see you tomorrow. Replay viewers, if you've got this far, thank you for joining and watching. Do share it out if you can, retweet it. Or share on Facebook and what have you. And if you get the chance, drop into YouTube and just subscribe to the channel and stuff. It all helps. But thank you very much. Take care. Have a very good evening. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Good night.